We are joined on this episode by a musician and filmmaker whose directorial debut, Thirst, is now available on digital and VOD platforms. Welcome to the program, the drummer for alt-rock duo Black Pistol Fire and the writer-director of Thirst, Mr. Eric Owen. Eric, thank you so much for joining us on the program, sir.
Guys, I am so stoked to be here. Thank you so much, Becky and Sean.
Yeah, likewise. Really grateful that you took the time out of your schedule to chat with us, and really excited to dive into Thirst. But
you guys really interrupted my knitting time tonight. I was doing a bunch of knitting. No, it's great. I'm excited.
You can multitask. You can knit while you talk.
That's true. That's true.
Before we get into Thirst, wanted to start just by going all the way back to the beginning and what got you interested in film and filmmaking. Was there a person or experience, a movie, or any piece of pop culture, that got you into that kind of creative storytelling?
I would say there's two specific things that are very different. One is definitely a movie, and it was I just read an article about it in Rolling Stone, The Fugitive, which is celebrating its, I think, 30th anniversary. I was really young at the time. I was too young to see it. I was maybe 9 or so, so I didn't see it in the theater. But my parents, who didn't really watch movies or go to movies very often, but I remember them going to see that and then talking about it. And then they bought the VHS, I guess, the next year. And I watched it when I was really young, and it was the first, non kind of Disney or like kids comedy movie that I ever saw. And it blew my mind. It blew my mind. I've watched it so many times after that. It had the opposite effect on my 3 younger sisters, who tried to sneak in to watch it. And that first scene where he's crushing her skull with the ball, they say to this day still haunts them and terrifies them. But yeah, I just remember that movie, it was the storytelling component of it, the thrill, and just kind of like it kept you going, and the mystery, and then obviously the visuals too. There's some really powerful, there's some big action in that, but it just really floored me, and just wanted to, I was too young to know that, I want to do that, because at the time it seemed so attainable, but that really just made me appreciate and love film right away. And then the second thing was a couple years later, very different, would be a music video. I got really into music at like 11, kind of, a lot of 90s alt rock, kind of post Nirvana and all that stuff, because Kurt had already died at that point. But there's a video by the band Radiohead called Just, which I always love music videos. I always thought they're really cool. But that one has this really powerful story throughout, where it's all told through subtitles. If anyone hasn't seen that music video, it's incredible, and it leaves you on a cliffhanger at the ending. But yeah, those two things just really made me just feel something when watching something on the TV, as opposed to just like laughing, or like it made me feel and like question things. So yeah, those would be my two things that really kick my mind into another gear.
So yeah, we didn't know how good we had it in the early to mid 90s with music and movies, I think. But you said seeing The Fugitive changed something in you, but you didn't think that was an attainable goal. Was Radiohead and the other music stuff, did you see yourself going into music first, or was film kind of always in the back of your mind? How did that play out with you as a teen?
Film was never in my mind. The film seems so unattainable. Music, I started playing drums when I was 12. And played in bands, and that seemed unattainable. I knew I liked to play, and it'd be great to play shows one day, or play gigs, and maybe get to a place where I could play a big concert. That was a dream. But it never seemed attainable. It seemed so far away. Especially, Toronto now is a big city and a big music city, but at the time there's a handful of bigger Canadian bands in the 90s, but they were not big outside of Canada, and there weren't very many of them either. So even that just seemed unattainable. I just knew I wanted to do it. And then for film, the first thing I would say that I did with film actually had nothing to do with film. It was more storytelling. Was I started writing short stories as a teenager. And that is kind of where my journey to film started, with writing, is what it was. It started from short stories, and then, poems and songwriting, which then morphed into trying to write a novel, which, oh man, if I read what I wrote for my novel, I'm sure it'd be just atrocious. And then that ultimately turned into screenplays, which eventually led to making movies.
Yeah, I think for me too, the same was like writing is probably one of the things that does feel more attainable in some ways, because it's like, I can actually do it. Mm-hmm. I have the tools to do it. Obviously, intellectually and creatively, we develop more abstract tools, but in terms of got a pen and paper, have a computer, you could do it. Whereas both with music and film, you obviously need a bit more.
Yeah, there's a minimal barrier to entry with writing. You just kind of like do it, and then I think even as a teenager, I thought like, if I wanted to write a novel, I could. I didn't think I could. I didn't do that till, later in my early 20s. But it seemed plausible. Like, I can just do this and maybe someone will read it. Maybe someone will to be a musician and get a band together, to then spend the money to have someone maybe see you, to then maybe make a demo, to then maybe make an album. That seemed very difficult. And then for film, I mean, honestly, until a decade ago, I had no idea. I still don't know how to do it, but no, it's such a daunting industry, because it just seems so, when you're, especially at that time, it seems so big. And until now that I've seen, you see behind the curtain a little bit, it is attainable. It's hard. And there's not with anything in the arts, especially if you want to do it as a career, there's no direct path where, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a lawyer, there's obvious paths to do that. You go to high school, you get good grades, you go to a college, you take certain classes, and then eventually after enough steps, you get to be that thing. With anything in the arts, there's kind of no one way to do it. So yeah. It's just always interesting to see, because my journey is so much different than, the next person's journey.
Totally true. And kind of speaking of those paths, I'm curious, did you ever pursue any sort of schooling or formal training for kind of any of those pursuits, whether it be like creative writing, music? Sounds like maybe not with film, since it was later on that you started diving into it.
No. Well, I did some creative writing in high school, and I didn't do any in college. No, I have a university degree in economics. I don't know.
Not what I would have expected.
No, and not really what I wanted at the time, but I don't know. I basically just my parents and my grandparents actually, helped pay for tuition, and they're like, oh, go to this school. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll take economics. I took it for a year and really disliked it, but, figured, I might as well just finish it out. And then at that time, I already decided I want to pursue, it was music at the time. I'm going to keep doing music. And then after college is done, I'm going to do it for a couple of years, as long as I can, until I have to, I hate to use the word, get a real job, but yeah, do it as long as I can until it gets to that point. And I'm lucky that point never really came. Very lucky.
While you're sitting there learning about supply and demand, were you already drumming from your teen years? Was you a drummer by trade when it came to music?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, I started playing when I was 12, and played all through, always through high school, in bands, and in a very similar band to the band, and actually with my current partner, actually, we were in a band in high school together, and I was playing drums, playing some guitar, and, was constantly doing that. Played, elementary school talent shows, and then that became high school talent shows, and then that eventually became bars, and then bar gigs playing cover songs eventually changed into, or morphed into, us playing original songs, and then to where we are today.
Well, to that point, for folks who don't know, Black Pistol Fire, please look them up on Spotify and Apple Music, whatever you're using, and check them out. They are a really good hard rock duo, and I've been converted to a fan since we first arranged this with you, and I started looking up some stuff about you. So
cool.
I may have been blasting Hipster Shakes right before we got on.
Oh, nice. Cool. That's a good one. It's a fun one.
No, indeed. So the question I have for you about that, you said you were in a similar band before. Was it just another duo? But how did you come about meeting your current bandmate, Kevin McHugh? And how did you guys go about? Did you form up in Austin?
No, Kevin and I have known each other since kindergarten.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so it's been a long time. So since kindergarten. No, we played together in bands in high school, but there was always it was always him and I, but there was other members. And then we just kind of came to Austin and just started doing it ourselves, and haven't changed since then.
So you guys, okay, cool. So you grew up in Canada where Triumph and Rush were all these trios, and you're like, we can do better. We can cut even more fat and be a duo.
Totally. It's funny you mentioned Triumph. I actually just watched the Triumph documentary, and it is awesome. What a great documentary. It's really good, right?
I saw it too. Yeah. It's very good.
Yeah. I didn't think Triumph was, I knew they were, in Canada, for people who don't know, there's a rule called CanCon, which means that 30% of all of the arts, whether it be TV or radio, 30% of all that content has to be Canadian, whether it be the owner, the producer, the artist of its music. So we got a lot of Triumph in Canada on the radio, but I just figured they were one of those bands that no one knew. I knew Rush was big everywhere,
no one knows
Triumph.
them. I'm a nerd for like hair metal in that era of music.
But then you see, like, they were playing arenas in the 80s. It's crazy in that documentary.
I think if folks heard Lay It on the Line, they'd be like, oh, yeah, I know this song. But
exactly.
Americans might know.
Yeah, definitely. We did the duo thing.
I will admit, I mostly know Triumph from people's dads.
Yeah, yes, that's the clientele.
I am people's dads.
Yes, you are. Do you remember getting your first paid gig as a musician and what that felt like?
Oh, first paid gig. Yes. It would have been at the Corner Bar. It's a place that we used to go into with fake IDs. And it was a very small pub, and it was in our neighborhood in Toronto. And we convinced the owner, they had an old rickety guitar hanging up that like didn't have any strings. And one night we were kind of like drunk and like pulled it down, and Kevin could kind of play something on it. And they're like, "Oh, you can play." And we're like, "Yeah, we're in a band. We can play in here. We can bring a bunch of people." And we knew our friends would come there and drink. So they gave us a gig, and I think they paid us. Yeah, it wasn't much. It was like maybe $200 or something, but yeah, it was amazing. But at the time, being very unprofessional, dumb kids, we just got so drunk that I'm sure it was a very bad performance.
Oh, I'm sure it was fantastic.
You know what? It's a thing we learned pretty early on that, because there's all this myth of rock and roll stars and like these, just go get wasted and then play and you're great. And it's actually, no, you're half as good as you think you are at best. So we recorded ourselves and saw early that those two don't mix. So
yeah, half as good and twice as confident.
Yeah, exactly. So we've avoided that cliche.
So you've mentioned a few different rock acts, a few from Canada. Mm-hmm. Would you say any of them are your musical influences, or if from the Tragically Hip, then who?
Oh, I mean, hey, if you're Canadian, you gotta respect the hip. I love that you know the hip. That's great. Big influences for the band would definitely be more of White Stripes, Arctic Monkeys, definitely things in that vein. Cage the Elephant's one. Going back to the Beatles, we both love the Beatles. Things like that definitely be bigger influence. Nirvana was my favorite band growing up. Depeche Mode's one of my favorite bands, but they have no influence on Black Crystal Fire's music at all.
Yeah, it's funny. Sometimes, some of your most favorite stuff is not actually what you do, right? Or like with film, it's the same for me. Sometimes the things I love to watch are not the same things I feel are my strengths with writing.
Really?
Yeah.
What would be something you'd like to watch, like that you would want to watch
I love really tear-jerking dramas. I don't write them.
Yeah, they're hard.
It is. It's hard. And maybe someday I have one in me, but I'm definitely more of a genre, either thriller, action, comedy, with some dramatic beats thrown in there.
Of course,
or a murder mystery can be so hard to write, like a really good twisty turny one is a big challenge.
I love those. I've written a couple of those.
Oh, nice.
Those. Yeah.
Nice. Would love to see the boards and how you map that out, because I think that's always a challenge.
The puzzle piece. And I love that stuff though.
Well, do you feel like you're, transitioning over to kind of the film and maybe writing of it? Do you feel like your career as a musician has really changed, the way you approach other art forms?
Yeah, I think it helps the process of not really in music, especially in creating things. It's not going to be perfect all the time, and you just have to chip away at it, because there's always the idea. The idea is always the very fun part. But with music, the more you record and refine it, you realize, okay, the idea is the fun part, and then you have this basic thing, and then it's all the little things you have to. It's in Depeche Mode, they call it the screwdriver work, the little things that are not fun to do, but are like tedious, but that you have to do to make it better. That definitely helped. As far as writing and directing, and just really taking more time, and just there's a fine line there too, because you don't want to be being too much of a perfectionist where you can't let something go. So it's finding that balance. So I think being musicians definitely helped with that with film, is being able to refine things and work at it, but then also knowing when it's time to call it and then it's done, which is hard.
Yeah, I can definitely appreciate that. It's the ideas are fun, and then the actual execution of them is sometimes very monotonous and time consuming and detailed. And sometimes it's dealing with things that are not so creative and maybe not as romantic, right? Getting permits or schedules and all of those things.
Did you guys watch the Beatles documentary at all? Get Back?
I haven't.
Oh, I did. Yeah.
It's fascinating because I just love the Beatles, but it's 9 hours, and there's a lot of times where you see them. It gets a little, if you're not a big Beatles fan, it might be kind of tough to watch because they play the same songs over and over, and it's video of it, which I love. But it's literally watching creativity, because they play these same songs over and over again, and it changes maybe just a little bit this time, and that just kind of like it's just such a great lesson in what proper creativity is. Not proper, I shouldn't say that, but it's just realistic in that it takes a long time for the idea to come to the end product sometimes.
Yeah, you get to see the mess, before the product. And I think a lot of people, and I think that's really important too for young artists to see that, because sometimes you don't know, you're like, oh, you get imposter syndrome because like, it's such a mess. I'm just not good at this, but
for sure,
it's helpful to see, oh, these people who I think are amazing artists also had a mess, or also just had those like, log jams, creative log jams that they had to burst through. And sometimes it's just, getting through it, right? And over and over and over again, it takes a lot of endurance.
For sure. And patience. Cool.
Yeah, I think that's a great segue into talking about Thirst, which is your debut feature. So I'm sure there was a lot of learning along the way.
Of course.
So we'll definitely chat about that. But
yes,
I do want to start with just asking, what was the germ of the idea for it? What made you want to tell this story? It plays on a lot of themes about paranoia, overconsumption, conservation, conspiracies. So curious, where did that come about in your head?
Oh yes, all those themes. So at the time, after writing a bunch of screenplays with unlimited budgets of hoping to like sell the screenplay, I basically came up with not the idea, but I decided, okay, I'm going to write something that I can just shoot myself and fund myself for like a micro budget. So I had 2 different scripts I wrote. They were kind of indie drama films that were good, that I showed to a bunch of people and had people read, and everyone was kind of like, oh yeah, it's good, it's okay. Nothing that anyone was totally excited about. And then I was actually with Thirst, I was on the road with Black Pistol Fire. We were playing a show. I'll never forget. We were playing a show in Minneapolis, and we have a crew with us, and they're kind of like setting up for sound check. And I went down by the water, and I just had this idea. So for me, I have a phobia about not having water. Like I just have to have it by me at all times. It's very, I was gonna say irrational, but it's actually very rational. It's like the one thing you need to live. So yeah, I just had this idea like, well, what if like we couldn't get water, but like that wasn't enough. And then I thought like, well, what if there's something in the water that you don't know about? And then just create this, the scenario of like there's something that you need to live, but it also kills you. And you have to make this choice. So I had that idea, and then literally just sitting at the river over the course of an hour, I kind of just jotted out some very loose plot structure with the idea. And then I went back and I told our guitar tech at the time kind of the idea. And I had the ending in mind too, like, oh, it leads up to this big, finale at the pond where there's this battle over this kind of shitty pond of water. And I told my guitar tech, he's like, oh man, that sounds awesome. I would watch that. And then I told another person about the idea, and they're like, oh, that sounds really cool. And so I just literally that night started writing it. And yeah, so for the movie, a lot of it is, again, the water for me. Jose, the main character, his insomnia. I suffer from some insomnia like a lot of people. The ringing in the ears, that's me. So it's a lot of my personal fears and issues I deal with kind of manifest through this movie. And then there's also just this, it's kind of I wanted to see like how humanity would react when given this kind of situation. Would they band together, or is it kind of every person for themselves? And some people band together, but then there's this other faction that just, take advantage of the situation. And yeah, it's kind of where it started. Just kind of those ideas.
Someone who lives in the American Southwest, trust me, that water phobia is justified, because we always hear like, LA, Phoenix, and that area will be unsustainable in 50 years. We keep hearing if Lake Mead drops below another level, it's critical. There'll be no more water to the southwest. So very, very timely in my opinion. But beyond those germs of the idea that you're talking about, like the themes, did any particular films inspire you? Were you looking at any kind of like apocalyptic cinema, eco-terror, even disaster movies? Because this kind of reminds a good comp movie, I think, is Ramiro's The Crazies, just in the way that it unfolds.
Oh, I've never seen that. I got to watch that.
Yeah, there's a remake about a decade ago as well.
Oh, cool. No, so for me, it was, I guess, less the theme of like kind of, eco horror, but more so the vibe and tone. I would say two films that definitely influenced me would be Whiplash. You wouldn't think so, but just like I like the tension of that movie. And then a micro budget movie that came out in 2015, Krisha. I don't know if you ever saw that one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just that's a single location. Obviously, Thirst has multiple locations, but I like that kind of feeling of being closed in. So for Thirst, I definitely knew I wanted the first part of the movie to be like you're feeling trapped and like kind of the walls are kind of closing in on you. And then that obviously leads to the, when they get to the pond, there's this big opening. It's this kind of release. I knew I wanted that. But so for Christian, I kind of wanted that tense, claustrophobic kind of feeling.
Oh yeah, I never would have thought about that, but I can definitely see those influences in the film. One of the things I think is interesting is that a lot of the themes, we've talked about, I think are really interesting to explore kind of in a genre concept, right? You can go kind of hardcore drama and explore them, but I do think some of the maybe more extreme or hyperbolic scienarios really lend themselves to genre. So just curious if you had any thoughts on like why you think thrillers, horror, sci-fi, are such great ways to kind of explore some of these themes around the human condition. Yeah,
I think there's just it really like takes things up and just heightens them, and you're able to. In a drama, we kind of like, what's the worst thing that can happen in a drama? It's it's rare for someone to get killed or beaten badly or disappear if it's like a sci-fi movie. Where in a genre film, the consequences are greater, and that going in, that the stakes are higher. That if it's just a straight drama film, like, oh, what's the worst that could happen? Something emotional, which is very valid and difficult. Where I think in a genre film, we know that it's beyond the emotional level. There's a physical element of danger, no matter what. So I think that's kind of why some of the best stories are told in genre movies, because the stakes are so great.
No, agreed. And when you got to the point where, did you cut your teeth on any short films or anything ahead of this, or was this truly you just jumping in?
No. I did a couple short films for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is your feature directorial debut.
Yes.
Did you go about any kind of creative financing for the film, or did you front some of it yourself? I know you worked on in a pandemic world, but did you have any kind of interesting ways you financed the film?
No. So I did it all myself. Yeah. Did it all myself.
My spirit, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I felt I wrote the script and I got it to a place that I really liked, and I was like, what, I have to make this. I have to find a way. It would have been nice to have some investors, but to begin with, I at the time didn't know how to go about that, and also didn't want any bureaucracy or anything, or I just kind of I needed to get it made, and then after that, I was like, I'll figure it out after that. So yeah, I funded the whole thing myself.
No, I get it. You're in one of the few cities on earth that you can kind of do that in that DIY spirit and do. Austin has such a great community. And any folks who know Austin well, Brian Villalobos, who's a friend of Paper Street. And,
Brian
on our other pod as well. He's the lead of this movie, and you might recognize a few other kind of Austin locals in it.
Yeah. Oh man, Brian is great. I love Brian. He's so talented. He drove me nuts though sometimes on set because he's so funny. He's such a hilarious dude. And in between takes, he'd be laughing and goofing around. And we'd be about to do something really serious. And I just go to him. I go, Brian, you're killing me, dude. You're killing me. Please. Just because, he's just so funny and affable and likable.
That's the guy we know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great to have that energy on set sometimes when everybody's tired and it's like make you laugh. But I totally appreciate too. Sometimes like, I just need to get this done right now.
I was like, Brian,
I don't have time for jokes.
I was like, Brian, I love you. Just please stop. But no, the one thing I will say, a lot of people have said is just what a great crew it was. Great casting crew that everyone was respectful and had a good time with each other. And there was times where it was a lot of fun. I probably had the least amount of fun because I was just stressed out. But I was still able to have some fun too. I was the writer, director, producer.
Composer.
The composing luckily came after, and that was just the most fun. That was just stress-free and just.
That's true. That wasn't an on-set part.
Yeah, that was a blast to do. But yeah, for the actual shooting, being the director is enough work, but then being kind of the main producer and like putting, having to make so many decisions and the logistics and then things to deal with. It was a lot. And then also I'll let some, one way we were able to shoot the movie so cheaply is that the main character's house is my house. So, a good chunk of the movie is shot there. So on the days where it was here, I was the writer, director, producer, and I was the janitor too, and everyone left. So there was no shortage of work.
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah.
There's pros and cons to shooting in your own space, right? Some of it is you have access to location at any time.
Totally.
And you can be thinking in the space whenever you want, and your shot listing, all of that.
Oh, yeah.
Great. You're there. You know it better than anybody else. And you don't have to worry about getting permission to change things. But you're also like, it becomes your whole world. And then there's no quiet place to go to at the end of the day. It's all just work in front of you, for sure.
It's just chaos. Yeah, like I just kept our cats were in our bedroom, and I would just go like sneak off and like see if the cats were okay. But yeah, no, like made a great point there, Becky, is that when it is your place, you do have the advantage of like seeing. When I was doing the shot list, like I could literally like envision every shot and just sit there and, spend a lot of time really picking apart all the shots in the house and very specific camera angles. So that's definitely a major, major pro.
Oh yeah, definitely. What would you say was the biggest challenge, or maybe anything like unexpected that you're like, oh, I did not think that this would have been the biggest film on set? Sure.
Two big ones. One was that we got hit with an ice storm, so that essentially knocked out an entire day of it was already a very tight shot schedule. We had we were doing 13 and a half days. And then it was too ice for people to drive. So we literally lost a day. So 13 and a half days became 12 and a half. So then trying to jumble that and then make that work. Another one was, okay, I'll give you a good story. So the pond at the end of the movie, the big ranch, it was out in LaGrange, which is about an hour from Austin. And my partner, my producing partner and the DP on the movie, Josh, who did a great job, Josh Taylor, fantastic. We went to scout the place in, let's say, November when we first went, and it was great. The pond was everything we could have hoped for. It was amazing. There was no animals there then. When we went back in early January to kind of make more of a blueprint as far as where the people, we kind of some staging where we wanted things to go, where some of the shots were going to be. The people that own the property had some cows on the property now, so the entire area by the pond was just covered in cow shit. So that was the week before shooting, like, oh my God, what are we going to do with all that? Like, I can't have, there was so much of it too. It's like, well, I can't have people like constantly worried about stepping in shit or like just stepping in shit all day. So I kind of just freaked out about that the whole time. Like, what am I going to do? And I'm like, I can't ask someone to go do that there. So initially in my head, I'm like, oh, it was the 2 days we're shooting there. We'll just get there really early and like clear some of it out. And then finally I just realized that there's so much of it that on the one day off, I drove out there and I shoveled shit for 8 hours. And then on the way, as I was about to finish up to drive back home, one of the actors called me and told me that he had COVID. He was in the scene the next day at the pond, which we only had for 2 days, that he had COVID and bad COVID. Like, there's no way he's gonna be able to shoot. Luckily, he was not a major character, but he was not crucial, but he was a big part of 2 of the scenes. So I, that night, had to go home and rewrite the script for the shoot the next day. And I'm glad, though, that happened, because it actually ended up working better for the story. But yeah, that was the biggest challenge.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is the things you do, literally, like the shit into the stick for indie filmmaking, but then to go through all that and then have the setback with COVID and illness. Sounds like you did the right thing, and then it is great when some of those, I call them happy accidents, turn out to be a good thing. And I think that's one of the best things about filmmaking to me, is that you get opportunities for things like that, because it is such an art form that is not, you can't just translate exactly what's in your head, or you can't, like with writing it, you're capable of creating exactly what you want. Whereas film, it has so many variables, right? With other people involved and, real life scenarios that come up. So it produces sometimes these wonderful, unexpected moments.
Going to be throwing some curveballs. When he called and told me that, though, it wasn't a panic, but initially just the feeling, it was already going to be a lot to do in those 2 days. I was just like, oh my God, what am I going to do? But I just went home and just did it, just because I had to. But I'm happy. I'm happy it happened. Worked out for the best.
Well, to that point about challenges, you've said earlier, everybody takes a different path, and that's very true. You started with music and have become a feature filmmaker yourself now. Do you have any general career advice for anybody that might be making their way through, going a different path, going into film, going into filmmaking, or any kind of creative endeavor like you're doing?
Yeah, I think you just have to find a way to do it. If it's film that you want to do. So my path now with film has actually been very similar to what happened with the band, is that we did it. We found a way to make it work early on. we could have waited to get signed by a label and never been signed. Instead, we spent a little bit of our own money to make demos. And then we spent a little bit of our money, saved up more money and made a record for really cheap. And then that record kind of did okay and got us a little, that led to the next thing. It was all these baby steps that kind of happened that led to the next thing. And I kind of see filmmaking hopefully being that same way. So for if anyone wants to do it, if you're a writer or a director, shoot a short. You can do it now. You can make a short for pretty cheap. Start on your iPhone just to learn how to craft and tell a story, and then make something cool that's 2-3 minutes that has some different shots, that has a narrative, and then maybe spend a little more, like spend a bit of money and get a sound person. Sound is very key to make anything really good in film. It's the most expensive thing also. But spend a bit of money and, make a cool short. And then if you want to make a feature, you're going to need some money, of course, but find a way to make it happen and find good people and do your work too. Like really make sure it's in a place. Don't shoot something because you want to shoot something. Find something that you're passionate about, that you feel really comfortable with and excited about, and find a way to make it work. Because the odds are, what's his name? Mark Duplass gave a great speech South by Southwest one year. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that one. Have you ever seen his speech, the Mark Duplass one?
I know the one you're talking about. Yeah, it's kind of made the rounds.
Yeah, the one about the cavalry's not coming is that if you just wait for someone to come and find you, like they're probably not going to find you. You kind of have to make it. You just have to make it happen for yourself. So yeah, just go find a way to do it. That's the advice.
Yeah, it's the one guaranteed way to not, be able to make it, quote unquote, in film is to not do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we said, there's a billion different paths, right? There's not one way to success, but there is one way to not achieving what you want, and that's by not taking some risks and taking some action to make it happen for yourself. Did
y'all see Promising Young Woman?
Yes.
Did you see that movie? You remember when I feel bad. I don't know. I can't remember his real name, but McLovin, when he's like bragging, he's like, yeah, I'm a writer. He's like, but yeah,
Christopher Mintz-Plasse.
Christopher Mintz-Plasse. Yes. I'm sorry that I just called him McLovin. But he's like, yeah, I'm working on this thing. She's like, oh yeah, is it done? He's like, well, no, it's like, I'm just like an idea guy, and like, I'm just such a perfectionist. And yeah, you can't be like that. You just have to do it.
The enemy of good. Exactly.
Yep. Exactly.
Do the work.
All right, so for this next bit, Eric has told us he's heard a few episodes, so he's not completely in the dark on this kind of genre twist on the famous Proust questionnaire by the late James Lipton. So we kind of try to tailor it to your taste based on some stuff we've learned about you, some questions on the fly here. So we will jump in. First thing that comes to mind, as we say, not a cool test. So yeah, I think you'll be good. I think you'll have some easy answers for some of these.
I'm excited to hear what the questions are.
All right. Question 1 is one we ask a lot. What movie do you think you've seen the most in your life?
It's a toss-up between either The Fugitive or Boogie Nights. I can't recall which. I don't know which one. It's one of those two.
Two very different movies.
Yeah. Both ones that I saw. I also saw Boogie Nights when I was probably too young too, but man, I still love it. I've kind of big inspiration, some of the shots in Boogie Nights for me, especially for some upcoming films. Some shots that even as a 13-year-old like resonated with me, like, wow, that's so cool how they did that.
Indeed. It's like that guy knows how to direct.
Yeah, right.
Question 2, what's the first film that you can recall really scaring you or sticking with you or giving you nightmares?
Ooh, scaring. It was definitely, I think it was Halloween 4 or 5. I'm not sure which one it was, to be honest with you, because at the time, we were having sleepovers and we just get a scary movie. And it was one of those Halloweens. It wasn't the one with Paul Rudd, I don't think. So I think it was the one before that. So I'm not sure if that's 4 or 5.
6 is the one with Paul Rudd.
Okay, so there's 5 then.
Yep.
The one with with the cult. The Paul Rudd one with the cult.
Yeah, and there's hints of the cult in the 5th one, but it's kind of like very, very low key, and it kind of ends with it. But
yeah, definitely.
Nice. What is your favorite horror movie franchise?
It's probably Halloween. There's some that I haven't enjoyed as much, but overall, I mean, that first one is just, the first 2 are so good. And there's some good ones also sprinkled throughout there, like, H2O. I really liked the first 2 of the new trilogy. But yeah, definitely Halloween.
Related, how about, do you have a favorite horror movie subgenre? we've talked about Eco Terror and all the
yeah.
thing.
I love a good slasher, but I also am a fan of psychological thrillers. Really, really get things going. I guess it's also not horror necessarily, but me and my wife love like erotic thrillers as well. We get a kick out of those. Anything with Michael Douglas from the late 80s, early 90s. Those aren't horror, but those are a blast.
Oh yeah, and it's a very specific time period. We don't get a lot of those anymore.
I've actually, I'm writing something right now, but the next thing I'm going to write is going to be a current erotic thriller. An LGBT,
nice.
Make movies horny again.
Yeah. Some representation, some LGBT.
And that too, yeah.
Yeah. Erotic thriller.
All right, taking things in a different direction. Well, the answer could be an erotic thriller here too, but
yeah.
Is there a movie, a show, a song, any piece of art that just always makes you cry?
Oh. Yeah, there's a song by a band called My Morning Jacket. The song's called Dundante, and it's just such an amazing, beautiful song. And there used to be a music video that actually wasn't their music video, but someone put that song together with a scene from Fantasia 2000. It's the scene where there's like the forest fire and the deer and like the forest spirit. It's just so beautiful and amazing. And then they took it down and then someone else put it up at its lower quality. But yeah, that it's such an amazing, beautiful, powerful song, but it's very sad. It's about his friend that died.
So number 6, do you have a favorite needle drop and or diegetic use of music in a movie that comes to mind?
Oh yeah. So it wouldn't be like a needle drop, I guess, but in Boogie Nights, when Sister Christian comes on, when Rahad Jackson it's just the way the tension builds up, where like his lovers in the background, just fireworks are going off, and Mark Wahlberg and the guys are all just like panicked and freaked out, and then Rahad Jackson's just like not paying attention and just listening to the song, and then he does the build up. We're motoring. I just love that so much.
Yeah, that's a good one. Kind of going back on the Halloween train. Question 7. Yeah. What is your favorite film by John Carpenter, if not Halloween?
Ooh. If not Halloween, then let's go with, I guess The Thing. Yeah, definitely The Thing. Yeah.
Piece of art, that film.
Oh, it's amazing.
Many correct answers for that question.
Yeah, not a lot of wrong answers.
Number 8, the one that really tells on you, on your age. Who was your first celebrity crush?
Ooh, gotta be Kelly Kapowski. Her real name, Tiffany Amber Thiessen. Saved by the Bell, yeah.
It was the character, though, right?
Yeah, it was. Even though Val Malone in 90210, her character, I liked even more. So
you pulled that name. That was more impressive.
Oh, my wife and I, we went and rewatched Beverly Hills 90210 a couple of years ago. Man, very entertaining.
I don't think I ever watched that show, so I just
Luke Perry, his character Dylan, he's so cool. Oh my god, he's like the coolest dude ever, and he's just got the best like one-liner comebacks.
I need to watch it. I've just heard it referenced so much. It was such a staple. Like everybody knew what it was.
Oh, yeah.
I just never watched it. So I need to go back and watch it.
Skip it to season 3 where they're at least seniors in high school. And then like after that when they're at college. So the first 2 seasons are pretty cheesy. The production's not as good. But yeah, go season 3. It's going to be very entertaining.
All right. Question 9. So we know, you definitely can't live without water. We've talked about that. Yeah. But in terms of other things that are more a luxury, not a necessity, what's something that you can't live without figuratively, like coffee, chocolate, fuzzy socks?
Something that I would really love to have. Some really good fruit. Just delicious fruit. If I have a choice, it would be cherries, but there's a specific cherry season. So they're not always available. But yeah, cherries or peaches or really delicious fruit.
Good answer. I also appreciate cherry season.
Oh my God. We're in the middle of it right now. It's a great time to be alive.
Moving into a couple music related ones. Who is, in your opinion, the drummer of Black Pistol Fire? Who, in your opinion, is the all-time greatest rock and roll drummer? Be that style, technique, vibe, whatever you want to say. Who's
for sure. So I do love Meg White. She's great. For me, it's Dave Grohl. I was such a Nirvana fan. And for drummers, I don't really love a whole bunch of flashy. If there's a drum solo at a concert, that's usually when I go to the bathroom because it just kind of bores me. I don't need a whole bunch of flashy stuff. I just want someone that's going to play really good stuff for the song. And for me, it's definitely my favorite again, my favorite is Dave Grohl. And then if I had to do a second, obviously, the traditional answers are like Keith Moon, John Bonham, Neil Peart. I'll give, Neil Peart, fellow Torontonian, he's up there for sure. But also Matt Helders from the Arctic Monkeys for modern drummers is phenomenal.
Yeah, so many different approaches too with all of those that you mentioned. But interesting what you said about the drum solo coming from a drummer.
Yeah.
But I also get what you're saying too. It's not about the ego. It's about doing what's right for the song, and
definitely
you're telling the story of whatever that song is, and the right vibe, and everything supporting each other.
Exactly.
All right, another music one, question 11. Do you have a favorite concert that you've attended, or something that's just really memorable from a concert?
Yeah, I'll give a very specific moment that's pretty wild. It was 2018. We were playing a festival in New Orleans called Voodoo Fest. It was 2017 or 18. I can't remember which year. And we were playing the main stage, and then we were opening the main stage. So we were like the first of 4 acts, and then the Foo Fighters were closing that night. I've seen the Foo Fighters so many times in my life, but when I was in 8th grade, or grade 8, as we call it in Canada, the Foo Fighters are my favorite band, and that, their big album had just come out, I think. And that song Everlong, which I've heard a million times in my life, but I remember that song. I remember seeing that video for the first time. So later on that, we played that show in New Orleans, and then a lot of the band members, in our crew, like stayed on the side stage to watch the Foo Fighters. But me and my wife went to the crowd because we wanted to. And it was a great show. And they played that song Everlong. And I just thought to myself, like, oh my God, if like 12-year-old me knew that I would be playing, on the same stage as the Foo Fighters, like, it just blew my mind, and I started to cry when that happened. Just that realization of just remembering how much it meant to me back then, as a 12-year-old watching that music video, and then to think like, oh, we're really like sharing the stage with them. And we've done that a couple times at festivals. So
you literally thought to yourself, if anything could ever feel this good forever.
Yeah, no, for real. And so it definitely was a tearjerker for me. Yeah,
to be a Nirvana fan and then later open for his new front banding band that's pretty incredible. Yeah. One more music one in that similar vein
of course.
The others. What would be your walk-up music? A question I always like to ask, like if you were to come out for a TED Talk, or if you were coming out even to perform, or even as a ball player or something, what's your entrance music? What are you walking out to?
Yeah, the one that actually Black House of Fire walks out to is an amazing one. It's a song by a band called Kasabian called Clubfoot. It's a nice, like, slow, droney synth, and then it kicks into like a hard bass riff. Second option would be, it's actually the song me and my wife was our entrance song. It's a song by Muse called Hysteria. I know I'm giving 2 answers. That's not cool. I should have have one.
That's wonderful. No, but
they're both great. Okay. I know both of the songs.
Both come to mind. I do too. Yeah, it was pretty cool that I knew both of them as well.
Nice. Yeah. And so Hysteria would be the second one. Oh, that riff. Like, even just when the bass riff kicks in, that's awesome. And then when the guitar riff kicks in, that's even more awesome.
And they're really good ones too, to like pump you up. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, switching away from music now.
Yes. Okay.
Question 13. What is your favorite local eatery in Austin? Like somewhere you would take somebody if they're out of town, like, you got to eat here while you're out.
So if they have, if we're getting a little fancy and going a little pricey with things, I'll go with like Uchiko if they like Japanese sushi and fusion. I've taken my family there and several friends. One of the best food reactions that I've ever seen anyone have is my friend's mom, Sylvia. It was her and her kids were down here. I'm friends with with her daughters, and we took her there. And I've hyped up this dish. It's the trumpet mushroom nigiri. I told her it's gonna be like nothing else she's ever tasted. Her reaction, you probably won't get this on the podcast, but I'll act it out for you. She literally took a bite, stood up, and then fell back down into her chair like that. It like blew her away. So the best
like
food
a preacher smacked her in the forehead is what he basically just pantomimed.
Yes. So it was the best food reaction I've ever seen. So yeah, Uchiko, if willing to spend a little bit of money, if you want something a little more, a little cheaper, great place down in South Austin that's just a good hang is Little Darlin'. Just a great hang, really good food, and just a great vibe, outdoor space. Yeah.
Only went to Uchiko once. It was amazing. And it's making me miss Austin.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
Number 14, a little existential here. If you could have the answer to one unknown question in the universe, what would it be? Examples being like, is there a God? What's the meaning of life? What's the day I'm going to die? Who killed JFK?
Yeah.
Were dinosaurs fake? Are aliens real?
Oh, that'd be interesting if someone's like really wanting to know if dinosaurs were big. That I would go to the
Go 10 miles
afterlife.
outside of Austin when you're in deep Texas, and you'll find some of those people.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. I would go with it. Is there an afterlife? And if there's not, that'd be cool. Like, okay, this is just it. And if there is, all right, cool. Yeah, like there's more that's going to happen. So I think knowing if there's an afterlife would be kind of good to know.
I'm glad you'd be set at ease. I think half this country would lose their damn minds. If you've ever seen the show The Leftovers, which shot in and around you, actually.
Oh, yeah, in Lockhart.
They did not take it well when a rapture actually did happen.
Oh, yeah. I saw the first season and a half, and actually Josh Taylor, my cinematographer, he loves that show. I think he's seen it a couple times. So I need to go back and watch that one again.
It's worth the journey. I know season 1 was a little rough for me too. I had to restart it again to like get into it. But yeah. Season 2 shot entirely in Lockhart, just down the road from you.
Yeah. Beautiful Lockhart.
Haven't seen it, but I've been told so many times I need to watch it. So
is that the show, Becky? That's a show people tell you, like, you got to see this. That's when you get harassed about.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of them, though. There's just so much content out there now.
I know.
There's a billion things I need to watch. I have a never-ending list.
Staunton.
Of lists. We're at the end, actually, of one. This was not a never-ending list. Question 15. What would your dream project be to make, like to write and direct? Would it be a particular genre, a period, or a style you'd love to tackle, a subject matter, or, maybe an IP that you'd love to work on?
Yeah, that's a good question. If it was like a dream scenario, I guess, man, I don't even know where to go with that one. It'd be cool to shoot like I'm actually in the process. I'll tell you, like I had this idea. I just started writing. It's gonna be hard to get this done, but like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre spec. I just kind of like started like loosely putting it together, very loose. So it's just like some ideas so far. But yeah, I think that'd be a cool one to tackle. Just being in Texas, and there's some really good ones and some not so good ones. And I think you could take it in some interesting places that it hasn't been.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of opportunity with that franchise, and thematically, so many cool things to explore.
Yeah, and I feel like there's not as much like canon and things because I think it's just all over the place, and you don't have to like really follow many rules. Like I think the sequels don't really follow each other or have much continuity, so you can kind of go a lot of different directions with it. So yeah, I had this idea, that I guess I won't say too much about, but just a way of bringing some interesting characters to it that tell a different story that also tackles. I like. There's a lot of great. Maybe less in like horror and thriller films, but in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of great indie dramas doing very like certain, not subgenres, but like groups of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like groups of people, like an example. Yeah. Subcultures. There you go. And there's ones that you always know exist, but like are never really examined. So something like that movie Jockey that came out. It's like, oh yeah, whoever thought to make a movie about jockeys? And yeah, just things like that. So I have one specific sub kind of culture in mind that's a pretty gnarly, weird one that I kind of want to incorporate into a Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So that would be amazing if it could ever get made and get done with like a rad cast, get Jessica Biel back again. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of those like specific, like they're almost like character studies, but for an entire like subculture, right?
Yeah.
They're a study on that culture. I'm a big fan of those films, and I think there's a lot of really interesting ones from like rural areas too.
Definitely.
Just like seeing how different people, even in the US alone, have such wide variety of cultural backgrounds. It's good stuff to explore. Well, you made it to the Rapid Fire 15. You did it.
I remember another that was a movie called Buffalo that explores like telemarketing, like that indie movie. So there's a lot of movies like that. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted the conclusion, grand finale. Hurrah.
No, it's good. It's good. A lot of great answers there. As we're kind of wrapping, I'm curious,
cool.
Besides maybe the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie in the future, who knows? Are there any other projects that like we should keep an eye out for, or anything you want to shout out to with band or otherwise?
Yeah. I'm actually, I don't know if I'm supposed to say, but I think Paper Street and myself are maybe going to be doing something together. I don't know if that's supposed to be said or not. I don't know.
We'll keep it in wraps for now.
Yeah. Okay. No, yeah, there's a bunch of scripts on the go. I'm actually going to TIFF next week to pitch a couple scripts. But yeah, definitely got a bunch out there. They're all, as of right now, they're, a bunch of things in the thriller horror world, except there's another, I just realized it was a lightning round. So I have a better answer than the Texas Chainsaw Massacre one. If I could see anything be made, my dream, I actually wrote a crime coming of age movie script about kind of my year as a 14-year-old. Yeah. So if I could ever have that made, that'd be awesome. But who knows? Did I answer a question there? I feel like I just went all over the place.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
Not a lot you can talk about just yet, but like, how about any tour dates on the horizon for the band or no?
No, we just did our last one in Vermont last weekend for the year. And then going to be working on some new music and then hitting it big after that.
All right. Yeah, keep an eye out. Yeah. We'll have some links to him and website and such in the show notes at paperstreetpodcast.com. But Eric, thank you so much for the time. Again, you've converted me into a fan of the band, if nothing else. We're very excited that Thirst is now out on digital, on VOD platforms. Wherever you rent and buy movies, you will find it.
Thanks again. We're excited for you with Thirst. Can't wait to see what you do next, and excited to dive into your discography as well. Great answers all around, both in the rapid fire as well as like some little inspiring bits, I think, for maybe some first time filmmakers as well. We all start somewhere, right?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I was very excited to come on here, and it was everything I could have hoped for. So yeah, this helps anyone kind of nudge them in the right direction, then that's a good thing and a win in my books.
As is the hope. Yeah, we do try to keep it a little bit informative, and somewhat inspirational, like Becky said, at least giving people a nudge, because we get asked questions all the time, like, how are you guys doing it? It's like, there's 1,000 different ways, but here's a few we can tell you. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks again. Sure. And it was wonderful to chat with you.
Yeah, guys, great to meet you. Thank you, Becky and Sean, so much.
All right. You as well. Take care.
Take care.
Take care.